Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes. So both of us are protected, both of us, all of us are nourished, all of us are going towards the same goal. Sahana. So, now, I said that the Kriya also belongs to the Yoga Darshana, and therefore we will take a look at the first sentence of the Sadhana Pada of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Here is what the first sentence is. I said it yesterday, I am repeating. Tapah Swadhyaya Ishwarapranidhana Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is tapasya, Swadhyaya, Ishwara Pranidhana, combined together is Kriya. Now, let's start with the first description, tapasya. Now, tapasya, what is tapasya? Now, in the present context, in the kalpa or yuga that we are passing through, nobody can do the tapasya which was done in Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and so on. Standing in the water, neck deep, their hands up and chanting, and so that within 2 days you will get pneumonia, you will be in the ICU. That kind of tapasya does not work now in Kali Yuga. So what does it mean by tapasya? Tapasya, the root meaning of the word tapasya, tapa means heat. Heat. Garmi, friction, heat. And anything that generates that in our journey towards the inner understanding becomes tapasya. Tapa means heat. Now, what does it mean? Basically, it means that most of us are swimming with the stream. Whatever society is leading us, there we are going. Tomorrow, if the advertising industry says that iPhone is the best, we will all buy iPhones. I don't have an iPhone, I have an Android. My eye died long ago. Please, I'm not advertising for Androids, I'm just saying. So, this is the stream in which we all flow. Media and other influencers decide for you what our life is. This is the flow. Right? Now, in this flow, some isolated individual stands up and says, I am going to swim against the stream. I'm not going to listen to, I'm not talking about iPhones, please. Maybe they are useful, I don't know. I'm going to swim against the stream. Which means I will not go the same way that everybody is going. I want to change direction. He stands up. Now when this happens, friction is generated between him or her and the rest of the stream that is flowing, because it is in the opposite direction. This friction generates heat. In some cases, the heat may be actual anger and so on to other people, but it could be anything. This friction created by one who wants to follow a path which is not generally trodden by the public or imagined for us by the media. Such a person is doing tapasya. For instance, now don't mistake me when I say this that you should sell all your properties and go. And I'm not saying that. If I or you decide that this is the way of life I would like to lead, I'm not going to imitate others, even though there are many in number. Then I become an individual, sometimes isolated from society in a way. When that happens, there is always friction. That tapasya, that friction, that heat generated is inevitable. You cannot do anything about it. This is tapasya for us. Outward modes one need not change. I'm talking about the thinking pattern, the inner pattern. When everybody, from childhood, we are taught, gather, 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 to be happy. And the Upanishad comes and says, Tena tyaktena bhunjita, let go and rejoice. Opposite. Now, if somebody wants to do that, naturally he cannot follow the path or she that is normally prescribed, one turns inward. All our joys of this world are centered outward. When one begins to turn around and discovers there is something going on inside, not only outside, that turning around is tapasya for us. And it's much more difficult than standing in the water like this. If you go to Kumbh Mela, you can see many such people. One fellow has tied his hand up like this because he doesn't want to put it down. So for years he's standing, now his hand has withered. What spiritual benefit can come out of it? Nothing. So that is not what Patanjali means by tapasya. Tapasya is to move forward in the reverse direction. What the other direction is called the pravritti marga. This direction is called the nivritti marga. Of course, in certain things you will have to follow the pravritti marga. You cannot say that I will not fly from Bangalore to Bhubaneswar in an aeroplane. I will only levitate and go because I am a yogi. Practical things you will have to do. Imagine me coming into the tent from behind the coconut. It's not that we are talking about. The decisions that we make and the way we should move forward in life, when that clashes with the common idea of life, tapasya begins. Okay. So that includes moderation in diet, moderation in everything. Then Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is to develop the habit of studying oneself. Now what you are here and what is happening is only Shravana. I am saying something and you are hearing it. I am not even sure if listening is happening, but hearing is definitely happening. Swadhyaya, unless you are wearing earplugs, Swadhyaya means thinking about what you listen to. It's very close to manana. Shravana, manana, nididhyasa, in the same way. Swadhyaya is self-studying, studying oneself, trying to see, listen to what we hear and trying to understand what's going on. This is Swadhyaya. So there nobody is helping you, you're doing it yourself. Self-study is very important. A spoon feeding is a terrible thing. You actually don't need to carry much knowledge nowadays. Actually, technology has helped us that way. You have your laptop and your chat, GPT, everything is there. Why do you burden your brains with all that? Keep them free. When you want, you can go and check. So, Swadhyaya is not to, it is self-study, it's not got from anybody else. And Swadhyaya on what? On what you heard. Shravana. Swadhyaya always also means, if you split it, like Adi Shankara did, with his great expertise in Sanskrit grammar, it also means Swadhyaya, knowledge of your own self. Now please don't come to this quick conclusion that when you say Swadhyaya, knowing yourself, means to start with, I am that Supreme Brahman. You're not, at the moment at least. Swadhyaya, self-study, means knowing yourself where you stand in society, while you live in this world, at the moment. This is self-study. Where do I stand? I can project the idea that I am the Supreme Brahman, but I am not. I am the Supreme Brahman, I belong to everywhere, I don't have anything. Somebody snatches your watch and you go behind him with a hammer. Which Brahman? So, Swa here means as you are now, not you want to be, what you want to be, not what you project yourself to be. What you are, and how do you know that? Only when you are in society, in this life. You cannot do it in a cave. First of all, nowadays it's difficult to get a cave where you can sit alone. Almost impossible. Apart from that, suppose you meditate for 10 hours, for 10 years in a cave. How do you know how you are? Nobody is there. Will you get angry with the cave? Are you jealous of the cave? Nothing. There is nothing. You come out of the cave, get into the bus, and somebody kicks you on your toe, then you know where you stand. Then from Brahman you become a Rakshas. Especially a stiletto heel, you got it. So, self-study, Swadhyaya cannot be done quietly sitting in. Yeah, that is also one part. But it's basically to know where you actually stand in relation to the system in which you are. Swadhyaya. Apart from that, hardly any caves are left now. Your bedroom is your own beautiful cave. If you feel good, put some rocks in the corner. As we did in Babaji's temple in Madanapalli, put some rocks as if we're sitting in the cave. No, in those days when I was very young in Rishikesh, I used to live for a short while before I went up in the Sivananda Ashram in Rishikesh. The Rishikesh then is quite different from the Rishikesh now, mind you. I'm talking about the end of the 60s and the early 70s. Rishikesh was heaven. Not a picnic spot for the Delhi holidayers. You can see beer cans thrown near the Ganga. No? What kind of... And everywhere they are teaching you yoga, Kriya Yoga, this, that, and mostly dollar-oriented courses. Anyway, so I was there, so evening, there is a place near the Ganga when you come from the ashram. Ashram is mostly on the other side of the road. So you cross the road and there is the Ganga. Now it's become a huge, big parking lot. You cannot even... So anyway, it's very quiet, sitting there. There was one another Brahmachari who was like, well, from my state. So he was a sincere fellow. Every day he will go to the temple, put some chandan, and come and sit down. One day he got very angry and he told me, this place, I'm talking about the 70s, it was not like now. If he said that now, I would have understood. But I said, "Bhai, what is your problem?" He said, "Look at my loudspeaker on the other side of the Ganga. It is shouting away. I can't meditate. This is not the way." I said, "Listen, what do you want to do? Relax." He started giving a lot of Malayalam galis to everybody. I said, "Wait, what exactly do? I want to find a cave in Lakshman Jhula. There is a cave. I'm going there." I said, "Go. Why you don't keep shouting at other people? You go if you want to go." So he went off. 2-3 days I was rid of him. I sit alone, happily look at the Ganga, people coming. Those days you had to come by boat from the other side. That bridge was not there. And then one day he comes back, still grumbling. And I said, "What happened?" Won't believe it. 3 days I was meditating. You found? Yeah, I found the cave. I was meditating. Then on the 3rd day I thought my meditation has culminated in some way. Some extraterrestrial deva has come to see me. Because near the cave in front stood a guy with a mask and all that type something. Yes, you might have read or seen some movies about E.T. anyway. And there was a pipe going like this, So I said, "Namaskaram. Please bless me." And he said, "Get out." I said, "What?" He said, "I've come from the municipality to spray for mosquitoes. Get out of my..." This is in the 70s. Now, can you imagine? Anyway. So, Swadhyaya is knowing about your own self while you are surrounded by the world, how you react, where you are, how you are. This is Swadhyaya. Then you will discover many wonderful things. Some are great, some are not so good, but you will discover many wonderful things. You will discover that you are also one of those, not you, please, pardon me, who goes window shopping for spiritual gurus. You know what is window shopping? Here in this mall, this is good, that mall, that is good, this mall. Finally, it is a mess. You put them all in one cardboard packet, shake them and throw them off. I finished, everything is over. Then I'm back to my spirit. What do you mean spirit? Oh, the one that comes in the bottle. All this you will discover. Self-study, Swadhyaya. So, then, Ishwara Pranidhana. Now I want you to understand this. In the ancient Indian teachings in our country, sometimes when I come to Indian places like Puri and all, I forget we are in India. So I say our country. Yeah. There was a set of people whose only interest was to explore the inner being. The Rishis. That's why at that point, to some extent, we had a setback in technology because they're not that interested in that. They were interested in this technology. How to find out about the mind, how to go in. It was totally dedicated. So they discovered various things which the other parts of the world did not discover. They discovered that deep inside us is a center which is even more powerful than a nuclear reactor. Well, they didn't spend time making a nuclear reactor. Which was good or bad, we don't know historically, but yes. Now this dedicated set of rishis, they discovered wonderful things. And I don't know why I was going to tell you about this. Can anybody tell me? Yes. Ishwara Pranidhana. So, they experimented, they read, they listened, and so on to the other rishis, and found out such wonderful things that I am doubtful if a human being, even with the highest intelligence, could have touched upon or found out or discovered such truths without the help of advanced beings from above. Well, they call them the devas, the gods, or so on. Anyway, because I don't think the Homo sapien was, even today, is ready with the equipment to touch. But anyway, mental, not physical equipment. So they said some wonderful things. One of them was that there are certain things which the brain, in its present state, limited state, can solve. There are certain things which it cannot. Hard to admit. So where logic and reason and the sharpest intelligence fails, something else has to take over. No ancient teaching has said that we should put our intelligence in cold storage. Never. In fact, the greatest mantra from the Rig Veda, the Gayatri mantra, asks precisely that may my intelligence be stimulated. Yo yo na prachodayat, may my intelligence. But the wonderful thing is that the most intelligent person very soon realizes the limitations of the intellect. Only the intelligent person can realize that. A person who is non-intelligent and filled with ego that I will solve all problems cannot understand this. The most intelligent person understands that beyond a certain point, the ordinary brain cannot explore, cannot go, because it is beyond the mind. Yan manasa namanyute, that which even the mind cannot conceive of. So forget about the brain. And then what is the solution then? Then they said, open yourself to Ishvara. Surrender to that. Now, this is why I wanted to tell you. In this ancient country, the study of serious matters like this were divided into 6 darshanas. Shad Darshanas. Now, when you say people try to translate it as 6 philosophies, they're not philosophies. Philosophy may end in a reality or not, but this is something that ends in a reality. So it's darshana. Now, you know this word darshana, we all know. We went to the temple, we had a darshan. We meet each other, we are actually having a darshan of each other. I mean, face to face with the reality is the definition of darshan. So the 6 darshanas were attempts by the ancient rishis to find the truth. They are not just philosophies. You cannot compare that great rishis with, say, Bertrand Russell, who was a great philosopher, of course, no question, but he was not in search of darshana, of the truth. So, among these darshanas, Shad Darshanas, 6 darshanas, they evolve very beautifully. You can see in the first is the Vaisheshika, the Nyaya philosophy. Not philosophy, Nyaya Darshana. Now, the Nyaya Darshana deals with justice, logic, Tarka Shastra, which is the science of discussion and argument, comes from that. Nyaya. Nowhere is there any spiritual mention. They left it to your intelligence to figure that out. So there the attempt is, what is correct intelligence, what is rational, what is not rational, what is logical, what is not. It's a mess. It's a big forest, of course. And justice, nyaya. What is just, what is not just, and so on. Even today it's the basis of our code. Nyaya. Nyaya means, what do you call a judge? Nyaya diksh. Now, the next one after that, darshana, you don't need to know all this for Kriya, okay? But I'm saying to relate it to Ishwara Pranidhana. The next one, next darshana is the Vaisheshika. Now the Vaisheshika darshana again does not give any reference to spirit, Atman, Paramatman, Ishvara, nothing. In fact, it's a complete philosophy of, you can call it a materialistic darshana, because it says the whole world was created by chemical combination. Kannada, one of the great sages who belonged to that school, which later also became the Charvaka school of Athis, coined the word Anu for atom. Even before the word atom was invented, Anu. That a combination of Anus in different forms and manifestations created this universe, and the intelligence is not somewhere outside but inside, innate in the Anus, the whole creation. There is no mention of Ishvara, creator, nothing. Brahma, Vishnu. It's one of the ancient, and the Charvakas, you will find them even in the Ramayana, as early as that, because Valmiki is the Adi Kavi. When Rama is about to leave the palace to go to the forest, some Charvakas come there and say, "Why, foolish fellow, why are you going?" He says, "Because I have to keep a promise. There is no such thing called keeping promises in this world." So Rama says, then what is the aim of life? They are saying to eat, drink, make merry and die. Charvakas. They form. Now when people say, we are Western atheists, I wonder, 2000 years ago we had Charvakas here. And then after that, Vaisheshika, comes Sankhya. Now Sankhya, the founder of the Sankhya Darshana was none other than the great Kapila Muni. Kapila. The other day a professor in Sweden told me that Kapila was from Sweden. I said, what? He said, no, you know the word. He's a Sanskrit scholar. He said, you know the word Kapila, what does it mean? What does it mean, sir? Kapila means hair which is blonde. So I said, okay, maybe he had blonde hair, but I don't take your theory. Anyway, so Kapila Muni. And Kapila is so great that in the Gita, Krishna has to declare, among the Munis, I am Kapila. No, he is the founder of the Sankhya Darshana. For the first time comes a Darshana which admits to the existence of an Ishvara. Now, the Ishvara of Kapila means the ancient storehouse, the ancient essence of all the wisdom, which is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. That entity, which is the storehouse of primordial wisdom and which is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient, is Ishvara. And then that Ishvara is part of, is that which is close to Purusha rather than to the nature which is called Prakriti. Because Sankhya is not a unified philosophy, it's a dualistic philosophy. There is Purusha and there is Prakriti. So, the one closest to Purusha is Ishvara as a manifestation. And this Ishvara is separate from Prakriti, which is the world, the universe that we have. Now, however, that Ishvara cannot be assessed, contacted, or understood by the jiva. So jiva is admitted for once, but cannot understand, cannot touch it. So it is not an atheistic philosophy, but it's an agnostic philosophy. There is a being called Ishvara, but we cannot contact that Ishvara of Sankhya. However, a human being or a yogi who has attained to that level of Kaivalya can also be considered as Ishvara. That's the only leeway that is given. Then comes the Yoga Darshana of Patanjali. Then of course after that there are two more darshanas, Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa and Purva Mimamsa, which is Vedanta. One is ritualistic, the other is Vedantic. So we'll not worry about that. So comes Yoga Darshana. Yoga Darshana, the Sankhya Darshana has been adopted. The concept of Ishvara, according to Patanjali, not only is there Ishvara as in Sankhya, but that Ishvara can be contacted by the human being in whose chitta the vrittis have been totally removed. Also, when your brain is not able to solve a problem, you can surrender to that Ishvara. Because it is the, what do you call that? The essence of primordial wisdom and is omniscient and omnipotent, and therefore the human being can surrender to that Ishvara. This concept appears in the darshanas much late, only after Sankhya in Yoga Darshana. In a way, Patanjali should be credited with the idea that he has given us that this human being can also contact that Ishvara or surrender to that Ishvara. So, this being the concept of Ishvara, Ishwara Pranidhana, surrendering to Ishvara, which means, okay, now, please don't worry about the time I'm going to give you Kriya. I'm hoping that even without Kriya you would have, anyway, no, I'm joking. So, I'm going to give you a small story, okay, which is close to this. Ishwara Pranidhana. For some people, Ishwara Pranidhana comes naturally. For some, it never comes. But anyway, now you have to use a little imagination. Huh? This is not from the Sankhya Sutra. This is not from the Patanjali's Yoga Darshana. This is more from the Sankhya Sutras. Sankhya Pravanchana Sutras are, you'll spend a lifetime, don't bother. So, in the Sankhya Pravanchana, instead of that, you find that reality and other things will all fall in place. Imagine that there is a rectangular box in front of you. The box is made of transparent plastic or perspex, whatever it's called, I don't know. And the rectangular box is divided into two by a vertical piece of transparent material kept in the middle. One part is quarter, this part is 3/4, divided. It has no lid or no roof. And now use your imagination a little. In this bigger part, where 3/4 part, there are some living beings, like us, some living beings. And these living beings are wafer thin. You know, wafer thin? Very thin. And they know only of 2 dimensions because they are also so thin that they don't know about thickness. They know length, they know breadth, but they don't know anything about depth or height. This they don't know. It's not like we. We know 3 dimensions. If somebody asks the 4th dimension, what is that? We cannot understand. In the same way, these poor fellows have only 2 dimensions. They can move like this, so they can move. They have no concept of up and down. They're there. Let's say they are colored green or red or whatever. Now in this small portion, which is 1/4, it's like a paradise. Greenery and trees and nice things to eat. And there are a few of them sitting there and enjoying. Now these fellows in the 3/4 long session can see them enjoying through this. They can see that beautiful world. They can see them enjoying because it's transparent wall, right? But they don't know how to go there. Now they're trying hard. They're going this way, they're going this way, they're going this way, they're going in circles. They don't know how. There's no lid, but they don't know that concept, right? So they're going this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. Crazy. Every now and then they look. Oh, they're enjoying again. Now I or you, we are standing there looking at this fun and say, this is so easy. But this guy don't have a concept of coming up. But I think it's so easy because I can lift and put this way. So I want to actually pick up a few of them and put them on the other side to enjoy Ishvara. But they're not stopping. How to pick up? If I go, they're going on. They're trying desperately, so I cannot catch them. Now in one corner of the same place, I note that there are 2 or 3 fellows who have tried everything and decided this is not going to work. So they're just sitting there. I put it this way. They're there happily. Now these guys are still wondering, how did this happen? This is Ishwara Pranidhana. I tried always. Oh, then I said, okay, shut up. This is not working. And then I'm lifted up. This is called Ishwara Pranidhana, surrendering to the superior energy, superior intelligence, superior force of Ishvara, because I'm not able to solve it myself. Please do not apply this to your job, to solving your problem with your wife or husband or any such thing. We are talking about something else. And then next time you said, I did that, but Ishvara didn't help me. So, Ishwara Pranidhana, all these 3 things come together, then it becomes Kriya Yoga. Okay. Now, what are the steps? Let's come to theoretically to the steps now. How much more time? No, but I'm hungry. You're not? We have enough time, ample time. That much hunger I can. I'm joking. So, I told you yesterday that Patanjali's yoga is also called Ashtanga Yoga, which means there are 8 angas, 8 parts to be followed. Since Kriya is also Ashtanga Yoga, therefore all has to be followed for Kriya also. What are the angas? Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi, which is a culmination, but okay, Samadhi. 8 parts. So we start with Yama Niyama. Now, what are these Yama Niyamas? Rules and regulations to be followed. You cannot say, I will not follow Yama Niyama, but I will attain Samadhi. Not possible. Because yoga is a step-by-step movement. So, Yama, basically, Yama means, Krishna describes it in one sentence in the Gita. saying to Arjuna, this yoga is not for him who eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or sleeps too little. Now you can add other things in that. Who entertains himself but not throughout the night. There has to be a moderation in everything. This is the Yama Niyama. You cannot be like the Treta Yuga ascetics who ate roots and fruits and lived. Today only chimpanzees live like that. In fact, the bringing of civilization starts with cooking of food. You know, there are many salad addicts around, but I don't like. You cook food. Because people used to die eating all these things. When they started cooking, then their population also grew. But anyway, it doesn't matter. That's a different subject. So, this is the moderation. There is also the first yama, of course, in yogic teaching is ahimsa. Not like the Jains who say ahimsa paramo dharma, it is the greatest dharma, but ahimsa is a very important part of one's life. Ahimsa does not mean just hitting people and not being able to slap somebody. The state of mind which does not harbor enmity towards anybody. This is what is wanted. I know people who feed ants every morning with sugar, dal and all that. But they won't hesitate to bump off a business partner who is creating problems for them. This is not ahimsa. Ahimsa is that the attitude of causing injury or harm to others should not arise in the mind. You can live like that. Great yogis have lived like that and they have lived happily. So that's not an excuse that only if I do this, I'm possible. Not true. So, because every living being carries the Atman. Atman is the spark of the divine. Therefore, every living being is a moving temple of the Supreme God. So you're destroying the temples and building temples outside. What about inside? What about the moving temple of God, which is you and me? Here sits the Lord in the heart. I am Atma Brahma, my Atman is Brahman. Upanishad. Shruti. So to consider this and not cause injury to living beings is the attitude called ahimsa. Now, everything, like Krishna says, has to have a moderation. Neither too much nor too little it applies. Suppose I am in a resort in a quiet place with my wife. Okay? Somebody bursts through the window and carries her away. Now is it himsa or ahimsa to not go and find her? Should I say I am a ahimsa, so let him take away my wife? I mean, this is impractical. So there has to be a certain moderation in everything that you practice. Use some brains sometimes. So, like soldiers defend the country. You cannot say they have to follow ahimsa, therefore they shouldn't use their guns. They are protecting the country. Now this is the teaching of the Gita to Arjuna. Not throw away your bow, but pick up your bow. But not for a selfish end. For a general good. If somebody breaks in here and tries to hurt any one of you, then I won't be this laughing, smiling yogi sitting here and talking. I might change my aspect. Is that wrong or right? I would still say I'm practicing ahimsa. Why? Not allowing others to be violated. This is also ahimsa. So, ahimsa. Then, simple living. aparigraha. Now, when you say simple living, it is very relative. For some people, simple living is to live in a palace but with small number of rooms. Some people, simple living is living in a hut. For some people, simple living is living in a huge palace. It's very relative. When they say simple living, it means don't have so many possessions that you're all the time worrying about your possessions. Somebody will take it off from you. Right? So, you find out your own understanding of simple living. Don't get it too complicated. That's what they mean. Then there is another one called non-acceptance of gifts. Almost impossible in this world because everything works through free gifts nowadays. Right? The media builds up in such a way that you have to, when you go for a sale, when somebody sees there is this sale, everything is going at 50%, he would have already calculated his profit, but that's a different matter. But when a board called sale, everybody goes there. This is a kind of gift. You can't say you can avoid it totally. But try your best. That's all you can say. Now, the last point I want to make here. There are people who are born in a situation, in a family, under circumstances where from childhood they eat meat. Now, meat comes through injuring an animal. Yes. Now, if I tell them, I will teach you Kriya only if you give it up, it's not going to work. While yes, food is available, very nutritious, even without killing animals today. But if I made this condition, especially when I go abroad, many people pretend to be very vegetarian except at home. They say, oh, we are vegetarians. I had a good friend who said, by and large, I'm a vegetarian. And, by and large. And then when we go for a walk, smells like a good steak. So, it's your background and how you're made and how you're built up. But avoid injuring animals to the best extent possible is all that I can say. You can also, there is no excuse that if you should kill an animal to survive. There is no excuse. Think about that also sometimes. But practice your Kriya. Even if you're not doing it, please start your practice. At some point, your heart will not feel like indulging in it. Then give it up. I don't want to make a precondition. Okay? But yes, if possible. So if these are roughly the Yama Niyamas. Now if I don't accept a gift, you know how it is. Somebody gives you some flower and I don't want. Now there are ways of saying it. You can say, oh, thank you, keep it. Or give me a flower, I drop. It is unimaginable. So moderation in that also, in your behavior. How you behave, that also has to be moderated. I've seen in some orthodox setups where widows are not supposed to go, where sannyasins live. As soon as they see a widow, they take the cloth and make chi, chi, chi. It's terrible. I mean, you cannot be that. Was anybody born except through the womb of a mother? And there are people who, when they travel in aeroplanes, have two people holding a screen so that the air hostess is not seen. Why do you travel at all? Were you not born of a woman? So, these are all some few rules and regulations. Yama, niyama. Then, asana. While asanas are very good, You should always, if you're already practicing asanas, continue the practice. They need not be done along with the Kriya. You can do it at some other time. It keeps your health, body and mind in good condition. Asanas are not only for physical well-being, they balance your ductless glands, which is the endocrine system. That's the most important. We know today that the entire body is run by a master gland first, which is the pituitary sitting in the brain, then the pineal and the rest of the glands. When you say, I am enjoying my meditation, it is so nice and tranquil and beautiful, which means the pituitary has pushed in some serotonin into your bloodstream. So you're feeling good. And a little bit of dopamine. Too much dopamine, you'll start seeing wild visions. But so the yogis always knew that moods are chemical, and yoga is the way to manage it. Right? So the endocrine system is influenced by the asanas. Shirsasana. More blood flows into this part, so all the organs there work better. And so on and so forth. Yoga is not done for bodybuilding. It's not done for muscle building. It's not done for it's not like weightlifting and things like that. But it keeps the body strong, supple, active, and above all, the brain in good condition. So, asana. There are many asanas, but in Kriya we will do something called a Mahamudra, which takes care of the functions of many asanas put together, because it comes in this like Yama, Niyama, Asana. Then comes pranayama and so on. So, so when we come back, we are going to start now afternoon session. We are going to start the Kriya. Happy, na? So, I will explain little bit about asana and pranayama. Incidentally, there is a chapter in the Bhagavad Gita called Purushottama Yoga, the 15th chapter, where a tree is described. Urdhvamulam matashakam, whose roots are up above and branches down below. This is none other than the human body. Because the roots, the brain is here, and the pituitary gland, master gland is here, and all the other things are down, and everything is managed and done from here. Right? So this is the root, and these are the branches. You will not find this in any translation of the Gita, except there is a Bengali translation of the Bhagavad Gita by Lahiri Mahasaya, Shamacharan Lahiri, in which he implies how this is the root and this is. Then, in some way, 200 years ago, there lived a great yogi, Nath yogi, called Jnaneshwar, who wrote the Jnaneshwari Bhavartha Deepika. It is basically a translation and commentary on the Gita. In the 6th chapter, which is Yoga, in the Gita, while translating it, Jnaneshwar has touched upon this topic a bit, but very seriously. So, most people cannot practice what he has said, but yes, it is there. Okay. So, we have how many hours between the next 3-4 hours? So you eat well. The only condition for Kriya is 2.5 hours after your meal. So you have plenty time, so have a good meal. Eat well, but not too much or too little. Okay. Anyway, there are no stakes here. Om Shanti Shanti.